Oh, my. What are you doing? What are you doing?
All right.
What was that?
Usually I do it, and
You never throw it in the air.
I didn't mean to.
You need
I
me to
meant to
get
go
it for
like
you?
this.
I know you
Well-
don't like to get up.
It's okay.
You're worried if
Full
you
out.
bend over your toupee.
Oh, stayed on. Okay, look.
What?
Friday before vacation. It's still a power-packed show, and we're still locked in.
Yeah,
Don't
we
worry.
are.
And even though we'll be on vacation, Danny and Coach and Greg and everyone, there'll be good programming in this time slot.
Yep.
We're gonna
Great
be refreshed.
programming, I would say.
And then, outstanding.
agree.
And then, predictions week.
Holy cow.
Are you excited for the Monday morning call?
I can't.
When we get back, and Dusty's like, all right, so we're starting with the AFC West or whatever, and Brew's like, wait, predictions start today? Are you ready for that?
You have.
Are you ready
Not
for that?
totally unfair.
Have I ever said that before?
Brew.
Bruce, you're always prepared for the show,
Yes.
but you don't always know there's been many a Thursday call like, remember guys, we're off tomorrow, and you're like, we are?
Whoa!
I
That's
didn't
not
know.
predictions.
Okay, all right. just
I've
making
already been in the lab.
We're starting in Cincinnati. Lions, Bengals preseason. Joe Burrow, 5 for 6, 39 yards, 0 points and a sack. Not great. Only quarterback one held scoreless on the opening drive of preseason. Everybody else who started scored some points. Here's Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow.
It's never fun. I mean, that's not what we want to have happen. But again, we'll continue to improve.
You get your feet wet. That's football. Obviously, places we can be better.
Work here?
Yes, not nothing.
Yeah.
The hat, not nothing we can discuss in a second, but first we're going to do a real football.
The hat said I work here, if people couldn't
Was
see
he
it.
asked about that?
I didn't listen to the full press
He should
conference.
have been. That's a very.
It's a
interesting
choice.
hat. Yeah. It really was.
All right, so Jordan Love, he didn't kick the field goal, but the Packers got a field goal.
Good
Kirk Cousins, Jacoby Brissett with a nice pass, and Cam Ward had a touchdown. Joe Burrow, punt.
Yeah.
So should Burrow's night worry any Bengals fans?
In a vacuum, the opening drive or opening drives of preseason, as long as nobody gets hurt, you can say are meaningless, who cares?
True.
But if we are big picture-wise looking at it and saying, okay, it was Cincinnati starters against mostly Detroit backups. The fact that, for me, the only real concern I have about the Bengals offense, I'm not overwhelmed by their running game, but I don't think they have like a disastrous running game. But the concern I have about the Bengals offense is their offensive line. Is that Orlando Brown, listen, won a Super Bowl with the Chiefs, shout out Orlando Brown, but after being a first-round pick, Baltimore moved off him, then Kansas City brought him in, won a Super Bowl there, they moved off him. Cincinnati, he's really found a home, but the reports are he's had a rough training camp already, and you saw him get dusted on a play Burrow got hit on. If you were a little worried that for the Bengals, 7 years into Burrow's career, still have not really been able to figure out the offensive line, I don't think these clips against Detroit backups makes you feel better. And so I think it is definitively not nothing. And I think that a fair expectation would have been, all right, the Bengals are supposed to, at the very least, have an elite offense. You're playing a team whose overall defense there are some questions about, with Branch being out with injury, Terry and Arnold obviously not being on the team anymore, Kirby Joseph being out with injury. They haven't been able to find a pass rusher other than Hutchinson to begin with. And it's that team's backups, and you don't get any points that in your quarterback gets hit, that it's not nothing to me.
Yeah, look, I don't want to overreact to two possessions in the preseason. However, it is a bit, it raises your eyebrows when you go out there and he gets sacked. They can't protect him against the second team, the second unit for the Lions. If they went out there, like, I'm not so concerned that, they're the only first team that didn't score on the night. I don't really care about that. But the fact that they could not protect him in 2 possessions, 13 plays, he got hit twice and sacked once. And Orlando Brown, look, he was I know, like you said, Baltimore and the Chiefs moved off him, but he was a perennial Pro Bowler with those teams, made 4 Pro Bowls, has not made a Pro Bowl since he's been with Cincinnati over the last 3 years. And they have invested in that offensive
Yeah.
line. He's an example of that, and they just haven't been able to put it together. So, again, I'm not going to overreact to it, but it was something that just makes you say, I will consider this and look at this when I'm trying to predict whether or not the Bengals will make the playoffs. Now, you saw last night Burrow was under center more.
Yeah.
I think that's partially to protect him, too. They want to – maybe they'll run the ball a little more. They did last night. He was checking down a little more than usual. Is all that kind of – are those ways to protect him more? But generally a guy that's as good as Burrow isn't playing in the preseason at all.
Yeah.
And so you hate to see him go out there and play, especially a guy that has an injury history like he does, and then get hit a couple of times.
So has your confidence moved in a major, minor at all that the Bengals offense is not going to be out there cooking once the real season?
Yeah, I mean, I don't, as a general rule, I care a lot about and this is something I think Danny disagrees with me the most on. I care a lot about franchise history when I'm thinking about how much faith a team deserves. Because I think in the NFL, which is still, a lot of these are almost family businesses. They've had long tenured ownership that kind of has a way of doing business. And the Bengals franchise, to me, is one that has never instilled faith, despite the fact. And this is what I think people. They've had some not only some decent teams, Brew. I think the Bengals in my lifetime have done better than the average franchise when it is quarterbacks. I'm just talking about quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Ken Anderson was there, won an MVP. Boomer Esiason was there, won an MVP. They then briefly were out in the wilderness like in the late 90s, early 2000s. Then Carson Palmer, number one pick, was there. Andy Dalton takes over for him. And again, Dalton's not a great player, but it was,
put up numbers.
It was a decade of solid play.
Yeah.
And then Joe Burrow's there. So it's not like they have been bedeviled like the Browns or the Jets. We haven't had quarterback play at all. And yes, they have had more playoff appearances, and in the 80s they made some Super Bowls, and this decade they made a Super Bowl. So it's not like they've had no success like the Jets or the Browns to a degree. I just don't trust the team's infrastructure. And I think that they had you saw it right after they drafted Burrow, when there was the question of, do we draft Penei Sewell or do we draft Jamar Chase? They went with Chase. I'm not even saying that was the wrong decision, but it was the more glitzy, you know what I mean? You get him his college teammate, and that's been the best.
And Burrow pushed
for it.
Yeah,
and
they
then
went to the Super Bowl.
No. But then that decision to me was a precursor of, oh wow, we have 2-star receivers, pay them both. The different moves they have made that to me just make them. I don't look at them as this super high potential, super dangerous team. I look at them as a team that has a great quarterback, a great receiver, another really good receiver, and then a bunch of fine, and that to me doesn't win big in the NFL.
Another round of something or nothing, Brew. Joe Burrow's hat. He's a bit of a fashionista. His hat says, I work here. There's plenty of hats you could choose from. He chose this one. Something or nothing, the I work here hat.
It has to be something. And I'm not saying there's something negative about the Bengals. I mean, he's from Ohio. He's had plenty of opportunities to ask out or make noise if he wanted to. But you don't wear a statement hat without it meaning something. And I hope somebody asked him about it. I would think, sitting there that would be a question. I didn't see the whole press conference, so I don't know if they did. But it certainly feels like something. I don't know what to make of it, though.
It's not as bad as if there was one more word on the head. If it was, I just work here. That would be a definitive statement.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? I don't know.
And if it was orange.
Sure, yeah. I mean,
orange and black.
I try to be as prepared for work as I possibly can be. Yeah. I will admit something. I became aware of this hat 11 minutes ago when we first played the video. I didn't see it, so I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about it. What is your take?
My take is certainly not something 100 points of something.
Yeah.
It's not 100 points of something. There's no way. Look, it's a Friday in August. It's not a big deal at all.
Right.
But it's not nothing. It's not. It is not nothing. It's just not. You decided to do it. It's just not. I'm wearing a green hat.
Yeah.
Do you think the same guy that picked out the Anthony Davis, that's all, folks?
Now,
the same guy that picked that out for
not quite
Joe?
that
like that, but
where
maybe.
Anthony, I don't know. I just
This was just laid out.
It's just laid out.
And his answers were very short yesterday. I don't know if you watched. What I did watch, he was very.
I like the hat.
We just,
but not nothing.
Got to get the offense going.
Okay, Bengals host the Bucks in Week 1. Head to Las Vegas, where we got our first look at Fernando Mendoza. 4 drives for the number 1 pick, 10 for 16, almost 100 yards, scored a touchdown. Here's Clint Kubiak.
He led a good scoring drive as far as getting in and out of the huddle and commanding the group and getting the play calls down. I saw the same guy that we've seen in practice. I see, an ascending player. We just got to keep getting better.
You feel like the team is ready to name a starting quarterback, or is this, still early in the process for you?
Yeah, well, Kirk's been getting the reps with the ones. I think he's had a solid training camp, and, it's his job to lose.
Okay. What'd you make of Mendoza's night?
I was impressed. I mean, again, I know it's preseason. Drew Aller went out there and had, 3 touchdowns last night, so I don't want to make too much out of it, but he looked good. And I know I actually even liked at the press conference, he was very, self-deprecating. Like, I thought he went maybe a little overboard talking about, I didn't do this, I let the team down. He made some mistakes, right. But I do think that's genuinely his personality. Maybe you need to move out of that. I don't think it was for show, though. But he had, he's going to take the hits. Even if he doesn't deserve it, he's going to put it on him versus making little snide remarks about the receivers or whatever. So I do like that. But Nick, you heard Kubiak talk about his, him having the command of the huddle, the line of scrimmage. He showed poise. I thought he handled the pocket well. He ran. The one thing, like we talked about yesterday, you don't want to see him taking hits. He did take a good shot. I mean, he ran into the defender. I don't necessarily want to see a lot of that. But I thought of all the things
this was
he
the
did,
exact thing. And
that's it.
It was so similar, honestly, even to the place on the field from the game against Miami. This is so, and it was up the middle. It was really what I was talking about, wanting him. I just wanting him to avoid it, just not to do it. But go ahead.
Because that was a decent shot he took.
Yeah.
He was running hard.
And he's a big guy, but still.
But he's not Josh Allen or Cam Newton. You don't want to see this. You want him sliding, getting out of bounds, whatever it is. But of all the things he did well, and there was a lot, I thought. And we knew he had a strong arm, but the velocity he had on the ball, like he threw some bullets. And he threw passes outside the numbers. He was obviously threw passes in the middle. And his touchdown pass, where I think we have video of it, where he threw that, he split 3 defenders.
Yeah.
It was right on the money and really where it had to be. He didn't have much room for error there.
It was exactly where it had to be.
that was impressive. So if I'm a Raiders fan, I am very excited about the potential and the promise that he shows.
So I agree. I also think that for Cousins and for him, whomever is playing quarterback for them, having not just 1 but 2 highly drafted tight ends as primary weapons, because Michael Mayer, who 1 year in college, the Mackey is the tight end of the year award. Bowers won it, and Michael Mayer, I think, came in 2nd or 3rd. They're both on the Raiders. Mayer's career hasn't gone exactly the way he'd hoped, but he's looked good in training camp, again, reportedly, and had some moments last night. I think the Raiders' plan of starting Cousins is smart. And I do wonder if because Cousins was basically played, perfect in his little appearance yesterday. I wonder if Mendoza's wait might be longer than people anticipate. So if we throw up the Raiders' schedule, and again, I'm not saying the Raiders are going to be my deep sleeper. What I am saying is, you guys wouldn't think it was crazy if they start the year 2-1, right? That's not.
No, that wouldn't be nuts.
No, and I mean their toughest game there is a road game that's actually a home game for them in Los Angeles. You know what I mean? And right. And so they're favored against the Dolphins. We'll see about the Saints. Obviously, the next few weeks is quite difficult. Next 4 weeks, actually. And as the schedule gets tougher and tougher, and then typically they want, if you're going to make a change, you like to do it around either a long week or a bye, things like that. The bye is quite late. I also could see a scenario where the Raiders, after 8 games, have 4 wins, call it 3 wins even. 3 and 5 don't think their season's over, and Cousins is doing, fine enough that they hold it off a bit. You know what I mean? Like, is there a scenario where the Raiders go into the bye 5 and 7 and, alive for a wild card spot? You beat the Jets, you beat the Browns, you beat the Dolphins, you beat the Saints, and you beat one of the other teams. Like, and so because of that, and because I think Mendoza's personality is such that there is almost a 0% chance that even behind the scenes he's going to be making waves about, like, I'm ready to go. I could absolutely see a scenario where Fernando Mendoza's first game as a starter is week 16 against the Titans.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? Where once they've been officially eliminated. And if they are hanging around, I think there is a scenario where he doesn't play this year. Where Kirk Cousins is, as Kubiak tries to just basically, reestablish the Raiders as an actual NFL team as opposed to last year, and run Genty as a good year. You know what I mean? That they're just, solidly mediocre, and they just roll with Cousins.
And Cousins has had years where he put up good numbers.
Yeah.
They weren't necessarily winning big, but he was putting up good numbers. So I definitely think that's a possibility, and I don't hate that. You guys know, I am not the one that wants to force the young quarterback into, especially when he's coming to a bad team. Darnold is really, we use him a lot now as this example, but when you throw a guy in on a bad team, it's hard to get a great read of him. Now, the Jets have had, obviously they have a lot of problems, but they got a bad read on a guy that has proven he can be a Super Bowl winning quarterback.
Good point.
And so, obviously Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love, it works. And he's behind a great guy in Kirk Cousins, a smart guy that's going to help him and bring him along. And I would not have a problem with him sitting out most or all of the season, because I think it would help him going forward.
And I don't think you as an organization sign Kirk Cousins if you don't think there's a real chance that Kirk Cousins starts the majority, if not all, of the season.
Yeah,
they could have signed. You know what I mean?
Gardner.
Say it again.
Gardner.
Yes, there's a bunch of. They could have been the team that signed Justin Fields. You know what I mean? Like they could have signed a guy that's like, hey, you might get a few games, but we have the number 1 pick. We know who's starting. That to me signaled that they were serious about, potentially trying to compete this year, like every team right now is going to try to compete, but also that we don't feel like we have to rush you in. So I think he looked good. They didn't say I didn't think he looked good. The more I thought about the Raiders, I was like, I think Cousins might start a bunch of games. Yeah. A bunch of games.
Be all right.
Yeah,
if they were all right, you're like, yeah. Max Crosby got a bunch of sacks.
Well, when you look at the deep sleepers, they certainly you like Cousins more than any of those other teams' quarterbacks right now, depending on how you feel about Cam Ward in year 2.
Jeremiyah Love also made his preseason debut last night. Played the entire first half, ran the ball 11 times, had 3 catches. Now, there have been some rookies who have burst onto the scene since the merger. 6 backs have led the league in rushing. Kareem Hunt and Zeke most recently. Edgerrin James, Eric Dickerson, Rodgers, and
Eric Dickerson, nice tidy 1800 right out of college.
That's pretty sweet. And great uniforms. And, of course,
George
Earl
Rodgers.
Campbell. Yeah. What are the chances that Jeremiyah Love is the best running back in 2026 out of everybody?
The best running back in the whole league. The chance is 20%.
20%?
Now, I will admit,
you're a little high on the
I am known
blind spot.
I am known.
I was about to say that.
I am known to have a overwhelming fondness for the rookie running back.
Yeah.
Last year, big part of the reason I thought the Raiders could sneak into the playoffs was Ashton Genty. A couple years prior, I predicted Bijan Robinson to win the Offensive Player of the Year. Not Rookie of the Year.
No, Player.
Player of the Year. This is, I think 14 touches in a half of preseason football is maybe a touch too much, if I'm being totally honest. And I am very hesitant to invoke this name, but I know I'm not the only person that while watching him run, just stylistically and how he looked, it reminded me of Adrian Peterson.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people are saying.
Right, and Adrian Peterson was a guy, I know he wasn't on your list, but when he came into the league, he had an argument, I was actually the best running back in the world as a freshman at Oklahoma. And Jeremiyah Love is coming off back-to-back thoroughly dominant seasons against big-time competition at Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. So you don't have the competition questions you had with Genty, or some people had with Genty.
Sure.
And I also, listen, Bijan's great, Jahmyr Gibbs is great. I don't expect huge years from Saquon, CMC. Again, I'm not doubting Derrick Henry anymore, but those guys are, to me, clear, potentially a touch on the down slope, depending on, which one. So I think there's a chance that he just walks in as the best running back in football. I give it 20%.
Well, look, and a few of those guys that led the league in rushing as rookies did go to bad. Obviously they were high draft picks, so the teams were bad. But Zeke, the Cowboys had won 3 games the year before.
And had another rookie starting quarterback.
Right. Yeah. Dak. Edgerrin James, now obviously Peyton Manning was there, but they won 3 games a year before he got there and then had a great year his rookie year. And George Rogers, they won 1 game and they won 4 with him. But I'm just saying, you figured some of those teams didn't have quarterbacks. Some of those teams didn't have great offensive lines. They weren't great teams, period. And yet these guys still put up big yardage. So I like Love a lot. Obviously, he looked great last night. I think he'll have a very good season, but this is an era. We have some really good backs, and you named a bunch of them. I don't think Derrick Henry, some of this is wishful hoping, that I don't think he's going to fall off. Last year, he was at 1,600 yards. So he has shown no sign of falling off, and they're going to be under center more. That might even take him up a little bit from running in the shotgun. And so James Cook, he's not at the best running back in the league, but he obviously gets a lot of yardage. And Gibbs has a strong argument to be the best back in the league.
And Bijan
he won't have David Montgomery sharing carries with him. So, and Bijan is great too. So I think he'll prove himself to be elite, but I would be stunned if he actually comes out and we're like, oh my gosh, he's the best running back in the league.
Jeremiyah, Rookie of the Year odds. Jeremiyah Love 1, Fernando Mendoza 2, which seems high.
I wouldn't bet that. Yeah.
Carnell Tate 3.
So part of the Love thing also is just twofold quickly. One is I do care that the league looked at him the way they did in the draft, and that the Chiefs, kind of recognized a month before the draft, we're picking 9. They ended up moving up. Mm-hmm. And we've got no shot that we're going to be able to draft him. You know what I mean? That he was, even in this day and age, that he was considered that level of pick. I also think Jacoby is the type of quarterback. Sometimes running backs are just stone dead in that other teams are like, we don't respect your passing game at all, so we're just going to load up against you. Jacoby will make some bad mistakes, but he'll sling the ball around the field. So you're not going to be able,
in yards.
Right, and so you're not going to be able to just sell out to stop the run when you play. I'm not saying Arizona's going to be good, but you have to respect that Jacoby's going to fire it downfield. Yeah. So I think he might have a little more, open space than the typical running back on a bad team.
Okay, there
Some
you go.
tough defenses.
Good Cardinals talk we got into the show. I like that.
Jeremiyah Love.
Do you?
Yeah.
He does. KW thinks August is the time.
Well, you picked them. You've been known to pick them to win the Super Bowl.
True story.
Mahomes returning to MVP form. Next on FS1, the Fox Sports Channel on Sirius XM. Last show for us before vacation, but when we come back, holy cow. We'll get right into it. Predictions week,
Let me mark
starting
that
August
down.
31st. And it's going to be star-studded. We're working on some great surprises.
Yes.
One of our predictions, who will win MVP? Josh Allen, favorite to win his second MVP. Lamar, second best odds to win his third.
Probably name the award after Josh.
Burrow
If he wins this one, that's definitely on the table.
has the third best odds to win his first. Then there's a three-way tie for fourth. Herbert, who did have one single MVP vote last year. Drake, who was one vote shy of tying Stafford for MVP. And Patrick, who's already won MVP a few times. So, are we buying that Patrick Mahomes can win another MVP?
Coach, you were not out here yesterday for the A block. But the A block question yesterday was, any doubt the Chiefs return to AFC dominance?
Yeah.
My answer was, yeah.
Very measured.
I have some doubt. And I explained why I'm confident, but I'm not doubtless. Mm-hmm. And I'm only saying that to try to front end your whatever you're going to accuse me of when you go. Because this question is buying whether or not Patrick Mahomes can win the MVP. And the answer to that question is a resounding, obvious yes, he can. And the evidence that I would give you from that is I believe this Chiefs team is better suited in a multitude of ways than last year's Chiefs team. And last year, Patrick Mahomes had 2 seasons. The first half of the year, when it was vintage Patrick Mahomes, and the final 6 games when he played the worst he's ever played as a pro. So I've shown the MVP odds graphic many times, so I'm going to remind the audience that, but then I'm going to show why this was the place he was in. At the midway point of last year, he was a huge favorite for MVP. Now, KW and others might think, that's just, Vegas Chiefs inflation, whatever it is. It wasn't deserved. But at that moment, here were Patrick's numbers on the year. Patrick, at the midway point of the year, was averaging 300 yards per game, 21 touchdowns, 4 turnovers, a 103 passer rating. And this was all obviously post the tackle that turned the tide when they all of a sudden got back to the light show for 5 weeks, which they did. And then it all went to hell. And that was not just because of players around him. He played poorly. There was a lot of things with it. But at the midway point of the season last year, with Rashee Rice having been suspended 6 of those 8 games, Xavier Worthy being injured, the offensive line already, Josh Simmons was on his little sabbatical. If we show his ranks in some of these categories, he led the league in touchdowns. He was second in yards. The Chiefs were a high-scoring, not 30 points a game, but a high-scoring offense. So if he could do that for half the year last year with weapons, I think, worse than the ones he's going to have this year, then can he do it this year for a full season? Absolutely. So, yes, he can win league MVP.
My gut is to say something sarcastic like the Chicago Bears were up by 18 points at halftime, but you play the whole game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you got to see the whole season.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to do that. What I think, with Patrick, and I talked about this with Tom, that Tom had the great year, had the injury, came back, had an okay year. It was still very good by most people's measure, but nowhere near what it was. And now Patrick's coming off a below average year to really poor year, has the injury, and is coming back. And the difference between those two players is Patrick relies more on his mobility than Tom ever did. So that's a cause for concern. But the idea that he can't win it, I don't think that's right either. Patrick has done so many things incredibly throughout the course of his career that the worst thing you can do is underestimate a great player. And he's arguably, he's in the hunt for greatest of all time. He's not quite there with Tom, but he's in the hunt for it. And I always share that story with Randy Moss, how that he had traded to the Patriots. He hadn't really played much, didn't play in preseason. We opened up with him at the Jets, and he hung 180 on us, and because we underestimated him. So that's what I'd say about any great player, which Patrick is. Even with the injury, he could easily be in the mix for this.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like Nick said, he can. I mean, you'd be crazy to say he can't. I would never, throughout his prime, I would never say he can't win the MVP. Now, he is not one of the guys at the forefront of my mind. I think last year I voted him. I thought he was my preseason pick to win MVP, and maybe even the year before, for all I know. But I know I've had him several years, thought he was going to win it. Right now, I'm not thinking that way. And I think he's probably appropriately rated. What was he, 6th?
No, he was tied for 4th.
Tied for
Herbert and Drake.
I do. This is not in order, but I think Lamar has he's
Lamar's got a great chance.
Yeah, he's more in the forefront of my mind. Herbert, I know he's never really come close before, but I like Herbert. Josh, of course. And Dak, I think, has a chance. If he stays healthy, I think Dak has a real chance.
Greatest offense there is, so yeah.
You're right. Stafford, winning it back-to-back is tough, but, he could put up big numbers.
Can I ask?
Why is Lamar's chance better than Patrick's?
I feel like you're right. He has a new OC, and he's coming off a poor year by his standards, too. But just more recently, we've seen him put up the big numbers. Lamar's been more excellent in the regular
season recently.
And that's why I called for Bieniemy to get him back as the OC, and that's when Patrick was last putting up the huge numbers. He's back. We'll see how that works. But over the last 3 years, Patrick just hasn't had numbers. No. And I know eye test, and you showed that little stint where he was playing great. His eye test is always good, typically. But you do have to have the stats.
To win the MVP,
you got to have
keep
stats.
That first half of the year, he had to do it for the whole year.
Here are the raw numbers from what the last few MVP winners have had.
Yeah.
Matthew Stafford went 12-5, obviously, so you got to win. 4,700 yards, 46 TDs. Josh had 40 touchdowns. Lamar, that was actually like a quiet year, and he still had 4,500 yards.
Next year was better than
a crazy year, but then Josh.
And then Mahomes at 5,600 yards, 40. There's that many touchdowns. I would be shocked. But again, the receiving core. I think it would actually be good for you if Kenneth Walker took 14 of those touchdowns.
And that's really why I showed those first half numbers. The first half of the year, he had more yards than anyone, and he was second in the league in touchdowns.
We take all those rushing yards, right? He
Well,
was
I mean,
running, he was running
no,
around
but I
for
mean,
his life.
I mean, so he was 206. I think he was second in the league in passing yards. The first
his
half
yards have still been high.
and so yeah, it's just his passing yards.
You expect his rushing yards. He was hit.
No, I think it's right. I agree with you. To win MVP, you have to have awesome stats.
Yeah.
And I just think, I think Mahomes' year last year is remembered as, yeah, you know what? He was kind of mediocre all year, and that's not what it was. No, he was awesome the first half, and then truly bad. Like, not just by his, like, I think.
You're going to play awesome in the first half?
Well, the first half of I just showed he led the league in yards and was second in the league in touchdowns.
I know, but it was it was like a big game against the Raiders, wasn't it?
No. They blew out the Ravens. They then blew out the Lions. They blew out the Washington. They blew out the Raiders, and they scored 30 and lost to the Jags. And after week one, I mean, I'll tell you the whole schedule. Week one, they lose to the Chargers.
Yep.
Week two, they lost to the Eagles on the Kelsey play.
We were there, yeah.
Week three, tackle that turned the tide against the Giants. Mm-hmm. Then week four, they blow out the Ravens. Week five, they lose to the Jags. Week six, they blow out the Lions. Week seven, they blow out the Raiders. Week eight, they blow out Washington. They then have a bye. They then play Buffalo, and the season is a disaster from that moment forward.
Yep.
And so, I mean, to me, 21 touchdowns, 4 turnovers, and 300 yards per game through half the season is a legit. It's why they were the favorites and he was the favorite, and then it all fell apart. So the reason I'm harping on that is the biggest argument against him winning it is like, yeah, who's catching the ball? But last year it was worse because Rasheed was suspended. Xavier Worthy was out with the shoulder injury. So, I mean, we'll see what it looks like this year. But
for what it's worth, 4 of his first 5 years, he had 37 or more touchdowns.
Yes.
105 or higher passer rating. Last 3 years hasn't thrown even 28 touchdowns in a season and hasn't had a passer rating of even 94.
Yeah. And ended poorly punctuated by an injury.
Yes, right. So he's coming off of that.
Dak Prescott talking Super Bowl, wearing vintage Cowboys championship shirts, calling his offense the Gotti, greatest offense there is, and told Jory Epstein of Yahoo, Jerry Jones moving different. Starting from free agency, they started doing things they hadn't done. Jerry making that decision of being aggressive and trying to go out and get what he wants. It definitely feels different. Brew, do you agree? This year feels different for the Cowboys.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Sure. Love to hear it.
Do you hear that?
Oh, delicious.
No.
Oh,
You hear that?
I do not.
Right. You don't hear anything. There's no drama down in Dallas. Jerry Jones is not running his mouth every other day predicting the great things that his team is going to do.
That's a good point.
Or in a beef with Micah. Or
Right. Well, that's the thing. Like last year it was Micah. This year, George Pickens settled easily. Quinnen Williams settled easily.
You're right.
Like they feel more, Coach, like a football franchise than a soap opera. Now, Dak is talking a lot of Super Bowls, but okay, he's a player, he's the leader of the team, but the owner is not out there making all these grand promises and predictions when he hasn't done a lot in the offseason. Like Dak said, they went out and did a lot. The defense needed help. They went out and got help for the defense. And yeah, it does feel different to me because we haven't, all the Cowboys stories we've talked, none of them have been Jerry Jones. It was Stephen Jones, it's been Dak, but nothing from Jerry. And so, yeah, it feels drama-free and it's about football, and I do like that.
Yeah, I was excited about what I was hearing from Dallas, which was nothing, and I was really impressed when I listened to Jerry talk it, and it wasn't the grand promises. It wasn't we're gonna what do you unload the car, or spend so much money, and whatever it was. It was none of that, but it was actual action. So that was all awesome. And then Dak starts, and then Dak starts. Like, why are we doing this? Why are we putting out the Gotti thing? Why are we putting out the vintage Super Bowl shirt? All this. This is a great offseason. You can quietly go into the season. You can let everybody underestimate you. It's almost like he's so used to getting attention, even if it's negative attention. When that stops, it's like, hey, wait, hold on. Let me get involved.
What if he feels like he needs to instill? I think Dak is a pretty measured guy, and I think he's a very mature guy, and he doesn't typically talk like this. So is it fair that at least there's a possibility that Dak, in his decade as quarterback of the Cowboys, is doing this strategically, feeling like that this team needs like a little more, swagger's the wrong word, but that he feels in the locker room, hey, I want everyone to understand, I think we can be a champion team. Right. Not that we can get back to the playoffs after last year being a disappointing year. Our best player on our defense now is Quinnen Williams. He was with the Jets. He never played for anything. George Pickens was with the the Steelers when they weren't, every year in the playoffs, but never championship caliber. Like, you know what? I need to bring that to the table.
Give me an example of someone who's talked their team to a championship.
Well, that's going to be a hard one, but
I'm just saying, give me an example in sports anywhere where it's like I'm gonna talk myself to the Super Bowl,
this wasn't
the World
the Super Bowl,
Series,
coach,
whatever.
But Sean Payton came out very early, talking wild about Bo Nix's potential to be great and that Broncos team. And all of us, remember they were 101 Super Bowl odd. They made the playoffs, Bo Nix rookie year. Then he's like, I've been around the teams that can make it to the Super Bowl, and this team can. We were like, what? The Broncos? And then they didn't beat the Patriots, but you know what? With a healthy Bo Nix, who knows? Could have gotten it. But he was just talking crazy, and we dismissed him.
Yeah, but there were a lot of times where he was talking crazy, and then he kind of walked things back a little bit too.
Well, yes,
yeah. Like I think it was a little bit of maybe I shouldn't have said that. Now that I look at it, and he usually walked that back. There's no walking this back. This is just, hey, let me double down. Good luck.
Well, we didn't even include in the story, Coach, that his iPhone alarms all say Super Bowl 61 or whatever Super Bowl.
I didn't understand that.
You don't understand? Let me show it to you. So on iPhone, KW, like an alarm. So like this one, mine, see the little names? So like this one says money because this was an alarm where I knew I had to pay someone money. This one says Southwest because it must be from an old flight from my dad.
Yeah, that's what I do. Mine says wake up. It's my alarm.
So he labeled all of them Super Bowl, whatever Super Bowl this is.
So I've got
LXI. Yeah, 61.
Well,
so
you
it
got to get
says
a
Super Bowl
colonoscopy,
LXI.
and it's like it says Super Bowl appointment.
No.
That's a ringer?
No, oh my God.
Does he have the first
That's why
game
we
of the
didn't do it.
season label?
I've
Every
lost.
time his alarm goes off, it says Super Bowl 61 instead of just
Instead
saying
of
wake up
instead of
or
music
alarm
or something.
or no
It
Jesus.
doesn't say music.
Music?
No, it is still the
When my
sound
alarm
is-
goes off, it plays music.
Mine
No,
too.
I
saying it's
understand.
labeled
It's the
something, bro.
word. It on your phone when it pops up, and the sound is the sound, but the actual text
But
says
do you know?
Super Bowl
See, I put in like
61.
pick up the dog at the dog groomer.
Yeah, his just
His says
60
Super Bowl.
Yes.
I would be like, uh-oh, I set an alarm, but it says Super Bowl
Right,
again.
so he has to remember what he's.
Dog's been at the dog groomer for 3 hours, going crazy.
Why he's not?
You
Just
know
roll the
what?
brakes.
I call that locked in.
Yeah, exactly. I
Do
knew
you?
it.
Locked in.
I knew he was going.
I call
I
Now
call
that
it-
I understand
I call that.
Yeah.
A potential to miss appointments.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.